This is the time to rekindle the bonds of love and loyalty and memory that link us together as citizens, as neighbors, as patriots. You are a rude, terrible person. That's okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do. They call her Pocahontas. Very low IQ. Low IQ. This is our future, our fate, and our choice to make. Low life. She's a low life. We call him 1% Biden. Until Obama took him off the trash heap, he couldn't do anything. Now he's talking about running. I think she is very bad for our country. I am asking you to choose greatness. No matter the trials we face, no matter the challenges to come. That hair is getting whiter and whiter, and he's getting crazier and crazier. We must go forward together.
Thank you to the brilliant people on my team who put that together. That says it all. I don't really have anything to add. The person unity said all those things. So it's do as I say, not do as I do. And if that moment during last night's address seems sanctimonious, consider what Trump told a group of TV anchors at a private lunch literally hours before. From Peter Baker in the New York Times, he writes, quote, Mr. Trump dismissed former Vice President Joe Biden as dumb, called Senator Chuck Schumer of New York a nasty son of a bleep, and mocked Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia, who he said choked like a dog at a news conference where he tried to explain a racist yearbook photo. That's according to multiple people in the room. Joining us is the reporter with that scoop, Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent. Peter Baker, there are some things that you read about him that are amazing, and it wasn't choke like a dog and son of a bleep that was amazing. What was amazing is that they tried to spin the anchors that there was going to be some grace note in this speech, that he was going to talk about unity. That, to me, was the big whopper lie of the night.
Well, it's one thing to try to turn a corner, to pivot away from some of the division that there has been out there and try to, in effect, set a new tone of bipartisanship or unity. But to have just a few hours earlier a lunch like this where you make clear that that's not really what's in your head and your heart that moment, you know, is pretty striking. And I think you're right.
But forget about his head and his heart. Here's what else came out of his mouth. He said he hoped he would get to run against Biden. I hope it's Biden. Biden was never very smart. He was a terrible student. His gaffes are unbelievable. When I say something that you might think is a gaffe, it's on purpose. It's not a gaffe. When Biden says something dumb, it's because he's dumb. I mean, leave his heart out of it, I guess. Who the heck knows what's in there? But what comes out of his mouth is venom, the most vitriolic, sort of low, bottom-of-the-gutter vitriol.
Well, look, I think that the Donald Trump that they saw at this lunch is the one that's more natural to him. He is a naturally combative person. He's a naturally blunt-spoken person. Obviously, a lot of people, as you say, find it crude or offensive, but it has been successful and use it. That's how he got to where he is. So when he gets up there last night in the House chamber and he reads from that speech that was written for him, that's what doesn't feel very authentic, because it doesn't sound like him. It doesn't sound like the kind of Donald Trump that we've come to know. And that, you know, it's a ritual. He feels obviously he needs to go through that, but I don't think it's going to define how this next year is going to go or how he's planning to communicate his politics and his positions to the country.
Like from the day after on. I mean, today he attacked Schiff. This also is in Peter's reporting, Jonathan Lemire. He recounted again the story of what he considered Senator John McCain's betrayal in voting against advancing a measure to repeal President Barack Obama's health care program. Although Mr. McCain has died, Peter had to write that sentence, Mr. Trump remains upset. By the way, Trump said, he wrote a book and the book bombed.
Commenting on the sales of a deceased decorated senator's book is rather remarkable even for this particular president. It is true. This is one that has stuck in Trump's craw since the moment that day when John McCain late at night.
Forget if he were my grandfather, I'd take him for a brain scan. That's bizarre behavior.
He is someone who, one of his defining characteristics is his inability to let something go. He holds grudges. And this is what
or to have any empathy for the family members of a deceased man.
That's certainly true, but he doesn't view it that way. And that's, we can psychoanalyze him if you want, but it's much more of a tunnel vision thing. And in his mind, John McCain was someone who, of course, he had a political rivalry with all along. We remember the, I prefer war heroes who don't get captured. But more than that, the defining thing for Trump about McCain was that vote, the after midnight vote when he went into the Senate and turned down with his thumb the Republican health care plan that would have repealed Obamacare, which delivered a humiliating defeat to this president. And that is what he has not gotten past. And he has now time and time again brought it up. I mean, Senator McCain has been dead for months, and this is still something he brings up privately to friends and aides. And now this time it got out in this in Peter's good reporting.
It's more than just an axe that he has to keep grinding. And there's something wrong with someone who carries on their political attacks over a health care vote after they have been buried.
You know, about a year ago when he gave the State of the Union, all of this sort of dialogue came out. Is this the moment that Donald Trump suddenly became presidential? And we found out, like,
I liked the record. Was like, I never asked that question.
I'm so glad. And I got
asked
the night of the address, and I said, I don't think he will ever be presidential. And 4 days after that, he started claiming that Obama had wiretapped Trump Tower. Donald Trump is a 72-year-old man. He has been this way for about 68 years. He hasn't really evolved. He's not someone who's going to change, and he sees the world in very black and white terms. He's a classic bully. And he's a short-term thinker, and he wants to win usually around the smallest of beer, how he appears publicly, whether he's seen as the victor. If that's a strategy that got him into the White House, it's not a strategy for creating successful policy. He's dug in on the wall because he doesn't want to be seen as a loser. He's dug in claiming that Robert Mueller is conducting a witch hunt. And the common thing around both of those, the negotiation for the wall and the Mueller investigation, is that Trump is cornered. Nancy Pelosi outmaneuvered him on the border negotiations. Robert Mueller's team has legally really moved him into a corner. And because he is who he is, I think what we're going to see over the next year, and maybe even over the next few weeks, is not just him being a bully, we know that about him, not him simply being insecure or a bigot or a thug. We've seen all that. Is that I think he's going to lash out because he's now got a Congress that's checking him. He's got law enforcement that is checking him. Mm-hmm. And he's got very few ways in which he can independently act on his own. Unfortunately, one of those arenas is foreign policy and North Korea and Iran. And I think that he's going to take action in ways that people should really, I think, be wary.
Is that what you're sort of seeing, Peter Baker, that all of this, today making these comments about ISIS, the section in the speech last night about Iran, do you see sort of a lurch toward, after the colossal failure over the shutdown, do you see a lurch toward foreign policy in terms of the bright, shiny ball that gets the president's attention?
Well, look, foreign policy is always the refuge of a president who isn't going to get anything done on Capitol Hill. It's the one place where they have a lot more latitude, a lot more freedom. In this case, you see the president, for instance, in recent days taking on President Maduro in Venezuela, making a big issue out of recognizing his opposition as the legitimate government. A lot of nations support him on that, by the way. He has talked a lot about moving out of Syria and Afghanistan, ending these endless wars, as he puts it. But that doesn't mean that he has a real strategy going forward. It is, in fact, so situational at this point. We're going to be going to Vietnam at the end of the month. He's going to have his second meeting with Kim Jong-un to talk about denuclearizing North Korea. It's not at all clear about whether that could actually add up to anything. The first one in Singapore produced, good spirits, and they said they fell in love, or he said they fell in love. But so far, no nuclear weapons have been eliminated as a result. So this time, I think, you're going to have to start seeing some concrete results out of this, and it's unclear whether that's going to happen.